Welcome back, everyone. And now when it comes to our next story over here, we are going to go and have a big update on something that I haven't talked about in a while, or at the very least, that I haven't done a whole segment on an episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And that is in regards to the Paramount Warner Brothers merger. And since last time that we have discussed about this, there has been a lot that has been going on where at best, right now, the situation with it has been very complicated. Now, I will go and say right now that yes, there have been a few things that did go in Paramount's favor in order to go and pave the way in order to go and actually acquire Warner Brothers. They did manage to get the approval of Europe and the UK in order to go and make that happen. And not to mention that there was a court case that was dismissed that was meant to block the merger, in which the judge said that there wasn't enough evidence in order to go and justify this whole lawsuit in the first place. So yes, there were a few W's that Paramount managed to go and get. But at the same time, however, there have also been a lot of things that occurred that really made this more of a massive mess. Yes, it did get a few W's, but the amount of L's that it has gotten, or the amount of pushback that it has received, it is massive. And even though there was one lawsuit that got dismissed, there is another one that's going to be coming up that is much bigger and much more intimidating for Paramount. Because last time, it was just a few people, like a few civilians that are just like concerned subscribers and stuff like that. But in terms of the next lawsuit coming up, oh boy, now Paramount has to now they have to face some powerful forces, which includes 12 state attorney generals. And then later, there was the Writers Guild of America that also jumped into the lawsuit that is meant to go and prevent this merger from happening. And one major update in terms of that lawsuit is that we now officially have a release date of when this lawsuit is going to happen, which it is confirmed that it shall be in March. Specifically, to go and read you from my source here on Deadline, that U.S. District Judge Arakeli Martinez Olguin, based in Oakland, wrote that the trial will take place from March 2nd to March 19th of next year. And it's because with this pushback and with lawsuits like this, Paramount actually has no choice but to keep delaying the time that they can go and actually acquire Warner Brothers. Because at first, the merger was stalled for like a few weeks. And then suddenly those few weeks turned into a few months. And now, because of all this happening, Paramount has no choice but to go and delay this until June of 2027 if they ever hope to go and take action to go and actually merge with Warner Brothers, or in order to go and make this acquisition even happen in the first place. But still, regardless, nothing can even happen in the first place, or at least the steps that they can do can only be absolutely minimal because of this lawsuit that is currently going on. But that's not the only update that is worth mentioning over here, because there's also another recent event that has occurred that really does highlight the current state of the whole merger that is going on, why it's becoming so much more complicated than Paramount could ever go and anticipate. And it's mainly because of this article right here, specifically from the New York Times, that is actually written by the CEO of Paramount Skydance himself, David Ellison, in which he literally wrote, at least in terms of the headline, in defense of the Paramount Warner deal. So yeah, David Ellison had to literally go out of his way to go and try to make a defense for what he ultimately wants to go and do. And yes, folks, I know that right now the website itself is pretty much paywalled, so we cannot go directly into the source itself to go and check it, but don't you worry, folks. We actually do have some backup. In fact, there are plenty of other websites out there that actually do highlight what David Ellison wanted to go and say in here, including this article here on Deadline. Now, the thing is with David Ellison, in terms of his defense, is that one thing that he would go and mention is that he would go and antagonize those that want to go and block this merger from even happening in the first place, where he argued that the only reason as to why there are people who disapprove of his merger in the first place is because of CNN. It's not because of any monopoly theories. It's not because of giving a lot of power to a few individuals to merge these companies together. It's not any of that. It's mainly because of CNN. And especially with the fact that David carries the Ellison name, there are a lot of people who are also very concerned, to say the least, that he would be very conservative with it, especially because of his association with his dad, Larry Ellison, who is a very notorious Republican billionaire who would constantly give his money to the Republicans, no matter how far to the right that they would go and lean, even to this day. And of course, there's also his close ties to Donald Trump. A lot of people are thinking that maybe CNN is just going to turn into a Fox News clone. In that regards, however, David Ellison would go and make his plea that this may not be the case. So to go and read you here from my source on Deadline, it says here that to his anticipated stewardship of CNN, Ellison writes, "I can't give anyone a view into my heart and mind, but I can share this. I have regularly voted for candidates of both parties. I hold some views that would be called conservative and others that would be called liberal, just like most Americans. And when it comes to our news or operations, I do not aspire to lead these companies to bend their newsrooms to my views. I believe that news should be based on facts and truth." He would then continue to go and say right over here, "CBS News and CNN are here to tell it straight down the middle," Ellison asserted in the essay, "that requires newsrooms that reflect the whole world, not one side of it. And it requires independence. Our journalists will continue to answer the facts and to all the people they serve, not to any party or causes." And it also adds that diminishing public trust in news. Here, Ellison cites a Gallup poll that found that just 28% of Americans trust the news, is a core issue facing all new leaders, Ellison says. As the overseer of CNN, he says restoring trust would be at the core of his mission. Trust can't be argued back, but it can be earned back. Story by story, day by day, he writes. In an age when so much of what fills our screens is machine generated or engineered to enrage, journalism for real reporters matter more than ever. That is the work I intend to pay for patiently for a long time. And with that said, let me just go and start things off by saying that honestly, dude, do you really think I'm gonna buy into that absolute nonsense right here? Like, first things first, like I said before, we are talking about an Ellison. Specifically, we're talking about David Ellison here. And he has shown with his actions again and again and again of how he continuously leans to the right. And I mean, I've already mentioned about his association with his dad, Larry Ellison, and then, of course, his close ties to Donald Trump. But then there is also the aspect that the big reason why people don't trust him when it comes to CNN, it's not just the fact that, oh, he might be a Republican. No, it's because of what we are seeing with how he's been handling things with CBS News. And that thing has become a massive joke. even when it comes to this right over here, even Deadline would go and call him out on that, in which it states that last year, Ellison Skydance completed its long-gestated merger with Paramount Global, giving Ellison control of CBS News. That part of the media empire has created non-stop controversy, particularly after pre-Skydance Paramount paid $16 million to settle a lawsuit by the Trump administration over the editing and promotion of a 60 Minutes interview, with the suit widely viewed as frivolous. The makeover of top-rated 60 Minutes, with most of its correspondents departing in recent months amidst charges of meddling by editor-in-chief Barry Weiss, who reports directly to Ellison and has only added to the furor. So basically, with the way that Barry Ellison, who is nothing more but a conservative mouthpiece with no actual experience in journalism whatsoever, now making her in charge of CBS News, and especially with all the controversy with 60 Minutes, in which many acclaimed journalists in there had to go and quit because of the way things have been run. Yeah, no, that is the main reason. It's mainly because of Ellison's leadership, where CBS News has become a massive mess, and even the people at CNN, they can already smell that trouble happening there is going to happen with CNN as well. And this is not even to mention with the way that David Ellison would try to say that, oh, he's in the middle. He's politically in the center, where he has both conservative and liberal beliefs and stuff like that. Yeah, that is an absolute lie, especially in this day and age. Whenever someone would go and say that, it is an absolute falsehood, especially if they're confronted of being in an unpopular political side. That's always the excuse that they would go and bring in. Like whenever you would go and call someone out as being way too much of a Trump supporter, or leaning like being leaned as like a far right extremist, like basically trying to justify whatever stupid thing Donald Trump would do, that's often an excuse that they would go and bring out. They would go and say, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a straight up Republican. I have views on both sides. I'm neither a liberal or a conservative. Whenever they would say that, they are an absolute conservative. They are an absolute Trump supporting conservative. They're just desperately trying to go and save face to not look like what is pretty obvious by everyone, that they are massively biased. And that is especially the case right here with David Ellison. It is obvious that he has a clear conservative bias, especially a clear bias to go and collaborate with Donald Trump. And not to mention with the fact that he is a billionaire, and not just that, actually, he is a full-on Nepo baby. Like, he is legit the textbook definition of a freaking Nepo baby. The fact that he is the son of a Republican billionaire, like that right there, honestly, nah. Don't lie to me, dude. We know that you are an absolute Republican. You have absolute biases going on, and we've seen how much of a mess that you've made with CNN, or well, not with CNN, but like with the mess that you've made with CBS News. It's almost a guarantee that the same is going to happen with CNN. But there is something that I do want to go and point out, and that is especially with this New York Times article in general, because I personally feel like it really does reveal something major about this lawsuit. And it's not necessarily with what anything that David Ellison said in the first place. It's honestly just on the factor that this exists. The fact that we even have an opinion piece from David Ellison coming in to try to defend the Paramount Warner Brothers merger. And that is the fact that right now, the people at Paramount, especially the Ellisons, they're scared. Now, I will go and say right now, there is no guarantee if the outcome is going to be that the merger is dead or if it's going to happen. I'm not here to go and say that the merger is officially over, Warner Brothers will not be owned by Paramount, like definitively, or anything like that. there is that chance that it could occur. But at the same time, though, there is that chance that it could not happen. And now the chances are becoming real, because I'm just going to go and say this. If the Ellisons and the people at Paramount are so confident that at the end of the day, no matter what happens, they would go and ultimately own Warner Brothers, this would not exist. They wouldn't even bother to go and try to justify themselves by putting out some New York Times opinion piece. Like, this right here is a clear act of desperation, because they know that this pushback, all these problems, and like the public being against this merger in the first place, they know that ultimately this is going to cost this is going to cost the Ellisons, and this could cost Paramount. They know that the pressure is real, and they know that there is a likelihood that the deal is ultimately going to be dead, and that Warner Brothers is going to go elsewhere if they want to be sold by someone else. And this is not even to mention that already the fact that there is this pushback going on, and the fact that there even is a whole lawsuit, the fact that there even is a lawsuit that is happening, we're already seeing a price that they have to go and pay. Because the thing is, in the original deal that Paramount has made with Warner Brothers, they were so confident that they would go and own it that they put in a deadline on October 1st for this merger to ultimately go and occur. Now, what's going to happen after October 1st? It's not that the deal is going to be dead, but rather the deal actually states that for every day after October 1st, when Paramount doesn't own Warner Brothers, Paramount has to pay a $7 million fee to the WB. Now, I know from there, $7 million doesn't sound like much. I know that $7 million, that's chump change to major corporations and to billionaires like the Ellisons. But keep in mind, it is $7 million a day. And right now, Paramount cannot do anything with Warner Brothers until the lawsuit is settled, which, by the way, is scheduled in March. So think about this, folks. For $7 million on each day, they got to pay for all 31 days in October. Then they got to pay all 30 days in November. Then they got to pay all 31 days in December. Then they got to pay all 31 days in January. And then they got to pay all 28 days in February. And then they got some extra payment that they got to do in March. So all that, when you now you could pretty much see at this point that the $7 million, that's when it accumulates more and more and more and more. And now up until that lawsuit begins in March, that's a guarantee that Paramount has to pay over $1 billion to Warner Brothers because of the whole pushback. And this is not even to mention that there's still more that they would have to go and pay, because the lawsuit still has to continue. And then they got to go and settle and see what the result is. And I'll say right now, if they lose and if it's game over, that the deal is not going to be made, then Paramount has to go and pay more, because if they're not going to own Warner Brothers, then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this, then they have to pay an additional $9 billion fee to Warner Brothers just for not making the deal happen. And that's already pretty bad, considering that what the Ellisons have already paid massively in order to go and own Paramount in the first place. That would put them in serious debt right there. And this is not even to mention also that there is another force that could actually determine if it's more likely or less likely that Paramount could go and own Warner Brothers. And that is the US midterm elections in November. Because right now, what we are seeing is that when it comes to the Democratic side, they're actually voting more and more progressives in terms of their representatives. Like right now, the moderate Democrats that we've seen, like with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and stuff like that, they're becoming less and less popular. And now we're seeing more Democratic representatives that are more like the New York mayor, Mamdani. Like we're actually seeing more progressives, even socialists, that are being elected to be represented for the Democratic side of whatever county they're in, or even whatever state that they may be in. Like now they're going to be running for Senate, they're going to be running for Congress and stuff like that. And I'm going to go and say right now, I'm not saying there's a guarantee, but there is a likelihood that maybe in the Senate and maybe in Congress, we could see things be flipped more in blue. And it doesn't matter if Trump is still in power and stuff like that. If Democrats end up getting more control over Senate and Congress and stuff like that, especially from those progressive people, that is going to severely hurt the chance of Paramount actually owning Warner Brothers. So that's why overall, even though it is not a guarantee if the deal is dead or if the deal is confirmed, there is a real threat that it may not happen. And the pressure is already on in terms of Paramount and the Ellisons, because as desperate as they could try to go and make their, as desperate as they are for their defense on trying to own the deal, and that David Ellison is trying to say that he's politically neutral, even though we already have tons of proof, especially with CNN or with CBS News, with the way that that's being handled, especially under Barry Weiss. And this is not even to mention how there was actually a 60-minute story that Paramount actually shut down that involved Jeffrey Epstein, to which I will say, I know that CBS News did deny that this is true, but still the fact that this is going on, it's not looking good for David Ellison's bias. So overall, this really does highlight that now there is a real threat when it comes to the merger of Paramount and Warner Brothers. Now there is a true chance that maybe it's not going to happen. Now, we still got several months that we got to wait until we know what the results are going to be. But already this pushback is costing Paramount dearly. So in terms of that, I will say we are entering in a very interesting new chapter on this major story. So with that said, I know we don't necessarily have a whole lot of time at this point, but now I want to go and quickly ask the chat wall, what do you all think about this big update that we have going on with the Paramount Warner Brothers merger? Do you think that it will increase the chances of making the deal dead? Do you think that there's going to be a way that the Ellisons will pull through and they'll own Warner Brothers? Let me know what you think right here. All right. Well, we got some good news, everyone. This merger is stalled. Not stopped, but stalled. The public hates this merger, and now it's stuck in court with a case to block it. Oh, and remember, Paramount can't do a single thing until March except pay $7 million to the Warner Brothers for more than 150 days to watch. Doing the math is a lot of money. They are desperate to make this happen, especially make CNN a third Fox News, but it looks more than unlikely. All right. Sorry for my language, but seriously, what the F is going on with you, Ellison? You want to buy Warner Brothers so badly just for CNN? You want actors and actresses to be blacklisted from Paramount and Warner Brothers to be blacklisted from Paramount and Warner Brothers for being pro-Palestine? You want to hurt people working in the industry? You promised 30 movies in theaters every year? I'm sorry, you lied. Stay away from Warner Brothers. And that's also another thing. Thank you for bringing this up, but that's another thing to show David Ellison's political bias. If he really is that political neutral, if he is like in the center, he doesn't care about the left or right, he wouldn't have made a blacklist for pro-Palestinian actors. So yeah, that's another factor where you could tell that honestly, David Ellison absolutely sucks at lying. Let's see now. The merger may be delayed, but we're not out of the woods yet, peeps. I don't know who David Ellison is fooling with that defense essay. Whether he made it with AI or not, he's lying his bloody ass off. David, what are your so-called liberal beliefs? Hiring women doesn't make you liberal. Hell, centrists aren't even down the middle. They're just apathetic. This merger isn't about cartoons or movies. This is about control over people and what people could see or believe. We might actually win this. Oh yeah, like honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if David Ellison was not the one who actually wrote this article. I mean, considering we are talking about a nepo baby of a Republican billionaire, I do not believe that this man has the intellectual capacity to go and write a New York Times opinion piece. He definitely must have gotten someone else in order to do so, rather it be any of his assistants, or maybe it's like ChatGPT. I don't know, but I don't believe it's him who actually wrote that thing. And yeah, not to mention, you did also bring up a very good point. Honestly, I feel like when it comes to David Ellison, I feel like he's the kind of guy who thinks that, like his liberal beliefs would honestly be the kind that would be actually moderately conservative. Like he would actually view anything that is liberal, like anything is liberal if it's not like a far right extreme side. Basically the kind of person who thinks that, segregation is, segregation is a liberal view for him. You know what I mean? Let's see what else we got here now. Let's see what other comments to read. I think it's safe to say that this merger has become a massive mess. The fact that there's now a lawsuit to stop this thing from happening is insane, not to mention David Ellison's response to it and how he's panicking. And honestly, I'm hoping this lawsuit can be successful and this merger is stopped for good. Also, considering this is going to happen after the midterms, and if it happens and Trump and Republicans end up getting destroyed in midterms, that could increase the chances of this merger being stopped. Exactly. I mean, there might be more updates to come, but so far, I mean, as this podcast says it best, things are gonna get crazy.